John. Okay, good. I didn't do it. Oh, so you're on. Yeah. Think you can handle it?
Handle what?
No.
Here's a book for being a great guy. That's not how it's going to be.
You need some pizzazz, man. You got to learn pizzazz.
Nobody wants pizzazz from me. My pizzazz comes out as piss ass.
I get it. How you doing? You cold? Is it him? I figured. I knew it. I knew it. Linda, I got to tell you, the truth is, I do the same thing. I do. I mean, I'm dead serious, and that just happened the last couple of years. I mean, I'm in my house, and I have a sweatsuit on.
Yeah, and ever since.
Oh, really? Wow. All right, we're about ready to start. Okay. Kind of have to be on this side, Mike. I'm not deserting you. I'm better from this side. All right, Scott. We ready? Attention on deck. Hey! When somebody says attention on deck, that means an admiral or somebody of equivalent stature has arrived. There you go.
Are you declaring yourself an admiral?
Plus.
Where's the admiral here?
As a matter of fact, I just got a phone call. I'm going to Washington. They're going to interview me. They're considering me for the next director of the Secret Service. So. Why do I say the things I say? All right, good evening, Sarah and friends. How'd I do here? Did I overmodulate?
It's perfect. I've pre-adjusted it for you.
Okay, welcome to the Fox Hunt edition of the Sarah Business Meeting. This graphic is for you. And I worked diligently on this. The hard part was embedding our call sign into this fox's head. That was the hard part. Exactly. All right, we're going to call this meeting to order. I want to welcome all of you, the best-looking hands in the hobby. And John Wagner, NHCD, said that I shouldn't say that. So he added, what did he add? Let's see, do I have a laser on this thing? Maybe. Oh, yeah, and the nicest. Now that is a lie. Just saying. Okay, announcements. We're going to get started. The next scheduled Sarah VE session, Saturday, August 3rd, 2024, Smithville Brethren Church. Where is he?
Right here.
You want to say something?
No, just
Well, wait a minute. You can't say no and then start talking. I'm just saying, Stephen, geez.
It's going to be another good session. I don't have the numbers yet. I know people have signed up. We've got a great group of people at this table right here that are going to be doing a lot of that down in Wayne County. But we're also looking at staying at Sharon Center United Methodist Church for the foreseeable future. I have no people there anymore that used to go to church there, but I talked to leadership and they said, oh yeah, you can use the church until you find something else. So, because there's been a little bit of a change in the United Methodist churches. So we're good there. So we probably don't have to worry about anything with Sharon until probably a year and a half, I would think. So other than that, we're good for this session. Yeah.
Is this going to be the
Yes, this is going to
permanent
be
move?
permanent so far that I know.
Until the Justice Center remodel is finished.
Okay. Yeah, till the Justice Center remodel is finished. I think
yeah,
that's,
but after they remodel it, they're not going to want.
I know,
us-
you never know. But I heard
Yeah, I don't know.
I
What
heard they're
kind of-
putting a special office for me in a jacuzzi, so I mean, I'm okay with
Turn off the microphone.
Yeah, no kidding.
Thanks, guys.
All right, I think his name was something like Stefan or something. But anyway, so advertise if you know anybody who needs a license. We are ready to accommodate. Okay, other announcements. DX Engineering single band low power dipole antenna build. Compliments of P-Cars. They're going to put this on. They have a 10-person limit on this, but if you're interested in I think they're saying 10 or 20 meter dipoles is what they're dealing with, but you can go to DX Engineering and take a look at what they're building. It's like $20, and then they're giving you the PayPal charge is on you as well. But if you're looking for a high frequency dipole, and builds are fun. I mean, after all, we've had a couple of them, huh? Haven't we? Yeah. Okay. More information is available. John Myers, WG8X, is the instructor, and KP4VZ is the P-Cars president. You can check them out on their website if you are interested in that. Where is he, Josh?
Hi.
Oh, anything else?
No, I think it's pretty good.
That'll do it?
Yeah, that'll do it. You can take a look on their website for more information or reach out to the club.
Okay, very good. Hamfest coming up. Norris Fest is this weekend. You can, after our fox hunt, go down there, have a good time. And Norris Fest is always, or up there, I should say. Norris Fest is always a good fest. A couple other things happening. Van Wert Hamfest is the 21st. That's Sunday, of course. Columbus Hamfest is coming up the beginning of August. And the Warren Hamfest, which I really like that one, that's August 18th. So these are the upcoming Hamfests that are relatively close to us. Yes, sir.
Picnic. Is there something else on the 18th?
Picnic.
So, sorry,
I know. I've already heard from Andy.
you can't go to the Hamfest, you gotta go to the picnic.
Yeah, got to go to the picnic. All right. The Sarah Family Picnic is coming up. I'm in love with this graphic, so I've kept it. This is a mark your calendar type of thing. August 18th, you'll be getting a lot more information on that. It's going to be right out here in the pavilion, right over there. And on the 18th, it should be a good time. We're gonna have a championship cornhole tournament.
Nobody here knows how to play cornhole.
Yeah, well, that's why I did that, because I'm going to win.
Hey,
What time, Gary?
What time? What time, Russ? 2, 1, 2, 3, 1?
why am I?
It's in the after. Oh, you're not doing it?
Oh, I'm doing it, but I'm not doing everything. I need people to bring stuff.
Okay, Russ, we'll talk.
Not today, because there's no more readings between now and then.
Really?
What time is it?
Wow.
One.
Well, yeah. And Russ's caricature here is really not a caricature. It is a photograph. Just saying. All right. Any other announcements for the good of the club or the group? Anything?
I was gonna say that
Yeah.
fellow who brought in
Oh, yeah. Who, Stefan? About the radios, the 2000s?
So, the gentleman's over there, he has a friend who's an Eagle. His brother-in-law died. I believe he said his call sign was KD8A from Seville. I don't remember what he said it was. I can probably look it up.
probably AL.
Doesn't matter.
So anyways, he just wants to move them for the funeral expenses. Funeral's already been paid by his sister-in-law or whatever. Two, he's got them both in his car. The other two pieces, two TS 2000s and one has a power supply. The matching one, PS 53, 1800 for the lot, if anybody wants. Two good radios, and those are all mode, all band radios. So UHF, VHF, HF. So all I know, he's next door with his buddy, because he's an Eagle. His buddy's an Eagle, and his buddy said, hey, they meet over here. There's some amateur group, so that's why he.
So is that, did you say 1800 for both? And the
Whole
power
package,
supply?
All three pieces.
1800?
You cover 1800.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not a bad deal.
No, because they go from, if you look on eBay and other places, 8 to 1500, they're selling them for. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Stefan. I appreciate that. If you're interested, this gentleman is across the hall. Okay, anything else for the good of the cause? Yes, sir.
One announcement, Summit County Aries is looking still for a couple more people to help us with the Goodyear Half Marathon. That will be coming up in August, on August the 10th. It is a Saturday morning. It is early. The marathon starts at 6:30 in the morning, so it's going to be. That's good for Gary. It's great for
Hey, Gary's there, let me tell
Gary's
you.
there, so.
Barely, but I'm there.
But we could use a couple more volunteers. If anyone can help us out with volunteering for the Goodyear Half Marathon, we would certainly appreciate it. You can go out to the Aries website, summitaries.org, and there's a sign-up sheet there on the home page. It'll give you a link to where you can go to the sign-up sheet. Then the race officials also ask that you sign up on their system, which is called Race Roster. And everyone that signs up as a volunteer on the race roster system will have their name put in a pot to have a drawing for 2 tickets for a ride on the Goodyear Blimp for 2 people. So you might possibly win a ride for 2 people on the Goodyear Blimp if you're serving as a volunteer for that race. Keep that in mind as well.
And if you're not lucky, you can be drafted to be aboard the SAG. Oh, thanks for reminding me. Okay, anybody else? Any other? Thanks for that, Ken. I forgot all about it. That's the half marathon now, right? Okay.
It'll be over by 11 a.m.
Yeah, it's
We'll be
pretty
out
quick.
there. If you want to be there early and get out early, ask me for an early spot. If you want to get in there a little later and get out later, then ask me for a later spot. But we have a few spots open. So.
All right, very good. Anybody else for the good of the cause? All right. Next up. Oh, geez Louise. Okay, I know, you can't, I get excited about stuff and then, do I have a vice president anywhere? Anywhere? Anywhere. Oh, there's one.
How many do you have?
You want to pass some of these out, just like one per table or something?
Is this like school?
This is like school. Okay, I got, here's the minutes. We don't necessarily have to vote on these or do it right now. Did you guys get a thing? All right, the June meeting minutes came a little late to me. I didn't get a chance to do anything with them.
I put that together and Gary redid it properly.
Not properly. That's not necessarily the thing.
Now that I could have printed and brought.
Well,
Oh, I could take a nap.
huh? Pretty slick, huh? Okay. The June meeting minutes, I glanced over them. I think they're pretty accurate, but we can either delay the adoption so you get a chance to read them, or, and I'll send you an electronic version later, but it's really up to you.
I don't know why you didn't get that done.
I was worried about, I was worried.
Keep it in the same format I printed it, it would go all right.
You should do that on Wednesday night.
Okay, motion to adopt the minutes tentatively for, and we will take adjustments or corrections later. Stefan, motion, second.
Who's second?
Somebody, Scott. All right. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign? Okay, very good. And if you do, please look over it. If you see something that isn't quite right, please let either me or Fred know, and we'll take care of it. Okay, next up. Where did that come from? Oh my God!
It's a long story.
This is supposed to be the treasurer's report. What happened? I don't know. I feel like such a.
Problem is,
All right, so. That looks better, bigger, doesn't it?
I like that. I like that.
Okay, so we do not have a treasurer's report yet. I'll send that out a little later. We got a little behind. People got a little tied up. We had a little bit of a transition issue coming on. We'll get there eventually.
That was a hell of a picnic, Mike.
It was nice. See, we used to have quite a bit of money, but we had to have the picnics.
I see. I'm just impressed. Whoops. I'm just impressed, seriously, with Mike cleans up really well, doesn't he? Wow. I told him that there was going to be a price to pay for not
I
getting this.
like those horns. Horns are fans.
Yeah, horns are kind of becoming, don't you think? Yeah. All right. All right, next up, Summit County and Summit County Aries are collaborating. Digital, all yours. All yours. Here's a microphony. Mostly phony.
That's an excellent use for an old antenna. I like it. All right, so in case you haven't heard or you don't know, Summit County's new communications center is now fully functional and online. With that, we added all new equipment for Aries at that new communications center. It certainly helps when you have the Talmadge Fire Department help you raise stuff onto the tower with their lift, which was really nice. But we do have a Roan fold-over tower, as you can see there on the far left. We do have a rather significant beam on the top of that tower, and we also have a tri-band antenna for the 2-meter, 440 and 6 meter. And there's a little picture of us assembling the antenna on the ground before we put it on the tower. That system is fully operational now. It was there were some drawbacks and some things we had to accomplish, some hurdles we had to cross. One being all of our equipment is in this equipment building here. Well, you can't see it from there, but in this equipment building there, and nothing coming into that building is allowed coax cable. They didn't want any coax entering that building, the main building. I don't know exactly why. I assume it's for maybe EMP or something. So everything that feeds that outbuilding next to the towers is all fiber. So we had to have radios that worked with Ethernet, so we have a 7610 out there for HF. We have a 9700 out there for VHF, UHF, and everything inside will all be computer operated. We'll be using the RSBA1 software to do all computer control for all of those radios. So it's going to be an interesting switch over, especially for the guys that aren't used to using the RSBA1 software. You won't be sitting in front of an actual physical radio turning the knobs. You'll actually be sitting in front of a computer doing everything on the computer. But everything is working very well. Do you have the news release? Did you have the news release on there?
I don't have it on
Oh,
the
okay,
slide,
that's fine.
but I have.
You sent it though, right? You
I
sent it
sent
out.
it to
Okay.
everybody, yeah.
So everyone should have received a news release. Eileen Shapiro from Summit County released a very nice news bulletin to everyone in the county about our help that we give to the Emergency Operations Center as well as Summit County EMA. And it basically spelled out, you know, we're there to help with any disaster or emergency communications that may arise. When they sent that bulletin out, I was bombarded with people wanting to interview me. So this morning I had my first interview with WAKR Radio at 8:40 this morning. They wanted to know a lot about ham radio, so this is really good because it's giving ham radio a lot more exposure, and that's what we really want and we really need is this kind of exposure. In fact, the young lady interviewing me, the first thing out of her mouth was, "Is ham radio still even a thing anymore?" And so we explained that, yes, ham radio is doing a lot, especially not only for the community, but also for things like Skywarn. And we explained how, you know, we have Skywarn nets that we can tell the Weather Service. We can be ground truth for the Weather Service. If they see something on their radar and they can see a spin, they can't determine really what that spin is. So they appreciate ground truth with the spotters out there that can say, you know, I'm seeing a funnel, I'm seeing a tornado on the ground, whatever it happens to be. But we had a very good interview today. I have another interview scheduled with Spectrum next Wednesday at 11 a.m. That's going to be a video interview. They wanted to interview me in my shack, and my shack is in my basement, and my basement looks like a disaster area. So Ted has volunteered to use his station as the station for the video. And Ted and I, so Ted's going to be joining me in this interview, whether he likes it or not. And we will be interviewed in Ted's station on video. Now, I don't know if this is going to be a live interview or if this is going to be something they're going to tape, and I don't know where it's going to air. I assume, I believe Spectrum's Channel 1, I think, has like a community. They have a community channel. So my guess is it will probably be aired on that channel. Yes, Russ?
If it's Spectrum, it won't be aired by Spectrum. They don't do very well.
Okay. Well, I don't know where this interview will be, but they're doing that next Wednesday. If I get any more details, I'll have Gary send out a message about, you know, if this is going to be an actual live or a taping and what times it may be seen and where. So. Yeah, it's been quite the ride here for the past 24 hours for me. My email box is filling up with requests for interviews, and everybody, this is exciting. You know, this is great. This is a super thing for ham radio. You know, we finally get a little bit of maybe, I don't know, press or something.
Yeah, a little notoriety.
Yeah,
goes
a
long
little
way.
notoriety, right. But anyway, so it's a good thing. And thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you. And so that's all I have. But
Okay. I will add that we are fortunate, our club, I mean, we're fortunate. Dorsey is the EC for Summit County. We also are pleased to have the EC for Wayne County with us as well, Doug Hunter. And so we got that base covered pretty well. And this is fabulous news, and the facility is is going to be great and fabulous coverage too. I haven't experienced it yet, but I'm thinking that it's pretty awesome.
And if you're wondering where the facility is, it's about 2 miles up the road from the candy store, from DX Engineering. It's actually right in Talmadge. It's right on East Howe Avenue and 91 in the corner. It's next to the Summit County Fairgrounds. It used to be a Weaver workshop, and they took that building, all those buildings over, so they've actually changed that now for the Summit County Community, or Summit County Communications Center. And I've been through it, I've had the tour, it's extremely interesting, very boring. All there are is people sitting in front of monitors on desks, and
Yeah.
and there's no radios in the building at all. Everything is in the Radio Shack on the outside by the towers. So.
All right, perfect. Nice job. Nice work, Ken. Let's give him a hand. All right, next up. Oh, look at this. We rock. Got to tell you, we rock. Your Highness, you're on.
Oh, I thought we did better than that.
Those are the numbers you gave me.
I know. All right, so preliminary field day point totals, we did a lot better than last year. All right, so thanks to everybody who was there. And we done more gutter than last year. What's gutter?
Gooder.
Oh, gooder.
I can't spell gooder.
All right.
Sorry. I'm a hillbilly.
So did a lot
I just
better. The
discriminate.
biggest complaint this year was you can't find any place to put out CQ because we're hearing everything. Okay, you couldn't find an open spot across the band on 20 or 40. So that's kind of exciting. Next year we're gonna have to work more on strategy, I think. Like actually find a frequency a half hour before everything starts. And just camp there calling CQ all day.
And never go to the bathroom.
And continue with butts in seats, but always have a butt in that same seat, calling out CQ on the same frequency all day, and make everybody come to us instead of us going to them. But this year went really, really, really good.
I have more slides.
You do?
Yeah.
All right, there we go. All right, we got to get out of the way there. All right. So the new antenna worked very, very well, as I was just talking about. Thank you very much, Jason.
Yeah, Jason did a great job with. We decided we were going to try to be a little more competitive,
Yes, and we were.
and we were.
But we still had a good time, did we not?
I did.
Okay.
Anybody not have a good time who was there? I said, who was there?
He was there.
Not enough.
Oh, I know. He wasn't there when the real fun happened.
Yeah, with real
Yeah.
fun. He was just there to eat.
So, let's see. The new field layout worked very, very well with one antenna in the back. And then Rick Niemer's tower on Ron's truck there was a real breeze to crank up and make happen. And that's Ron, by the way.
Oh,
Hi,
yeah.
Ron.
So I was looking at this picture. Would you mess with that guy? I mean, seriously. Not me. Not me. All right, let's see what else we have here.
Well,
Oh!
okay.
All right.
Obviously, here, you take
No,
over.
no,
on this
no.
one.
No, this. Did you?
Can't- So, obviously, we've got some. Where do you find these photos? All right.
Oh no! What
What
happened? Oh no! What happened?
All right. So, there you go. Look like that's because I did start the day by scrubbing the floors, Nick.
I can't see. Current slide, I hope.
We had a whole lot of fun, as you can see in the photos
Come on,
there.
baby.
And a lot of people were, we had some new folks. Harry there was a real trooper. Good deal, Harry. Ron is in every photo now because he doesn't like to have his photo taken.
Yeah, we make sure we get him now. Yeah, he's.
Is that picture before Ken got the new toys? Because he's like, I'm getting new toys, I'm getting new toys.
He looks like, what's in your hand there, Ken? Anyway.
No, Dorsey
and-
comes half dressed. I mean, look at this.
Don't point them out. Don't point them out. Oh,
I'm
Gary.
telling you.
All right. And I'm not allowed to have my photo taken without a hat on, so there you go. We went with a bandana. And of course, there's Javen checking SWR on the antennas there. He made some tweaks, Jason, just so you know. Thanks for the pigtails. That's why there were pigtails. That's exactly what was needed there. And this character was tailing me around all day, and he was acting like Google or Alexa for me. Every time I asked a question, he was behind me with his phone saying, here's the answer. Thank you.
And that worked pretty well.
You don't have a picture of Mark, who's not here surprisingly tonight.
Yeah.
Mr. Safety Officer. Oh, you missed Lane down there in the corner working hard.
Whoops.
There's Lane. Okay, next one. Yeah.
Yeah, Lane was. I don't think I heard from him all day. He was busy.
He was working
He was
multiple
busy.
radios.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. What do we got? What else do we have here? There's
All right,
Mark.
there's Safety Officer. Mark did a fine job of keeping me from hurting myself. Who's that one? Dustin. Oh, and we're catching Dave doing something there. Dave was participating.
Yep.
What was that, Dustin? That must have been like 2 or 3 in the morning, right?
Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the wee hours of the morning. And there's an EAI who was a real trooper, worked my radio all day, and made a whole bunch of contacts. And Rick Niemer, thanks for the tower, buddy. And Lane, that's your tower setup, isn't it? Good deal. We had fun. And there's solar powers. We used some alternate power as well.
I don't know. Oh,
Do I have another
the
one?
best is yet to come.
Okay.
Because I mean, obviously we had a great time. However, the best is.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. This is what happens after hours. Oh, right here? That right there, down in the corner, that's why KG4 STK isn't here tonight. Those are his feet, by the way. I don't even, is that Mark sleeping there too? Who's that one up in the side there?
No, that's Mark.
Okay, good deal.
So here's the thing. I couldn't get him and the feet at the same time because actually, this is a wall right here. So if you looked out through the doorway, all you could see was Mark's feet sticking out. And you can tell he is sound asleep.
And then we got Benjamin, who got real creative and actually hung his hammock between 2 columns in there, sleeping in the middle of the room.
The only good bed.
And if he didn't think that that was going to make the photo log, well, you should think again. And speaking of which, do we have a slide?
Next, yeah.
Okay. And Josh, we're going to have to save that for Betty someday to show her what her dad looks like at 4 in the morning. Of course you don't remember that. You were sleep FT8ing at that point.
Yeah, his hand was doing this.
I got 20 contacts. Sleep.
What, I mean, seriously, it was so much fun. And let's see, last but not least, I want to thank our illustrious Great Lakes Division director, I should say. I got one.
You got one.
Yeah. Scott Yonley, N8SY, and his lovely wife, Jane. Scott's been a great backer of this club and just a super advocate for us. Scott dropped by, and he dropped off
I got it.
a book. And he said, you know, have Nick come up with a recipient for this book based on their contribution. And that's not really fair, but I mean, the overall theme of the of the event was to work hard and have fun, and we certainly did do that. Anyway, I do want to recognize Scott Yonley. He has been an advocate, a friend, and we certainly appreciate being affiliated with him and the ARRL. With that,
So many people put so much into making this happen. But there was one individual who showed up last year at Field Day and really came a long way since last year and was very helpful this year in a whole lot of ways. Benjamin, KE8BHQ. Come on up.
up here.
So Benjamin was out for practice antennas. He was there from start to finish for a field day. He was all over the place with a whole lot of things. And last year he showed up and spent a couple hours with Ken Dorsey setting up his DMR hotspot. And what did you do?
I burped.
Oh. And
Hey, I got to tell you,
anyway, and
the beer was
he-
really good.
And he slept. It must have been. ARRL handbook, man. It's an awesome thing. You earned it. Thank you very much.
So we expect you to read it next month. Next month, Ben, you got to give a report.
I'm still learning how to read.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And by next year, he's going to be literate, I assure you.
Oh, man. Good job.
So, who wants to be field day chairman next year?
Nice job. All right. Next up. Do you want to do this? No?
They got to listen to me when the meeting's done, so I can talk about it.
Is this a no? Just say no if you don't want to do this. We can handle this.
It's just a short thing.
Well then. Okay, this is just a short microphone.
I'm scared of this. I fear this. Actually, what I fear is Scott without the beer. I don't know how to handle that at all.
I regretted it.
I don't. I looked over there and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. So this was something that we had talked about in the executive committee meeting, and Gary wanted to talk about it here. As many of you know, we do a lot with linked repeaters through the All-Star Network. If you aren't familiar with All-Star by name, but you've experienced people coming in on other repeaters to the Barometer net or the Beacon net usually, that's using a system called All-Star Link. One of the things that I was thinking about is I've actually done some work for them for about the last year as an aside/advertisement. The new All-Star Link hotspot software was released a couple weeks ago. It's very easy to install now on a Raspberry Pi, stuff like that. Has web interface. It's much nicer. But through some of the work I've been doing with them, this is a really good group of people, and they operate on a ridiculous shoestring budget for how much they actually, for how much the ham community relies on them. So one of the things the thought is since we have a lot of members who come to us through our nets and through the linked net specifically, was to have the club on an annual basis donate some money to the to keeping it all running. I mean, it's low cost, and like I said, it's run very efficiently, but there's some pretty significant monthly costs involved in keeping all the back end stuff running. So that was the proposal. I think I had suggested $200 a year, but that was just kind of an idea.
So
that was the ad. I don't know. I'll give you the stick back.
So, oh yeah, thanks for
Well,
the stick.
gotta stop
I get
looking
the
at
stick.
Scott now with no beer.
I know, it's tough. Scott, you could have given us a warning. I think that we utilize this system significantly. All the guys that come in from Arkansas and Virginia and California, Oklahoma, Alaska, England. It's over this all. Orville. It's all over this All-Star link, and I don't know that. Jason, do you want to make a proposal, an official proposal that we donate $200 a year to this group? Well, I think that's a reasonable amount.
I will move that we donate $200 annually to the All-Star League.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to donate $200 annually to the All-Star Link to keep it going. A second is Ben. Ben gets a second. Yeah. All right. Discussion. Anybody think this is a terrible idea?
Would it matter?
Only if you said it.
I think it's ridiculous.
I think it's
Okay.
a fabulous idea.
I think it's a fabulous idea too. Let's close discussion. Anybody have anything else to say about this? Okay. I think this is just support what we do significantly, and I think it's a good deal. That being said, all in favor of doing this, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, nicely done, and so moved, and therefore it is. All right, next up, Sarah, POTA 2. Okay, here we go.
All right. So, we had a good turnout at the June 1st POTA event, so I wanted to thank everybody who showed up to that and operated and helped with that. That was awesome. Afterwards, actually, PCARS really liked what we did. They heard about it. Brandon, KEARB, was there. And this is something, this whole idea of doing like a multi-club POTA event, like Nick kind of dreamed up in our case, they had kind of thought of this before, but they never got it off the ground. So they asked if we'd help them kind of pull another one of these multi-club POTA events together. The date that we chose was July 27th, Saturday, July 27th, 9 to 3. We are going to be at West Branch State Park, and PCARS is going to be at Lake Milton. I have some flyers back here on the bar if anybody's interested in grabbing them. So there's more details on the website with the specific location. We're going to be at the East Boat Launch Ramp. It's kind of hard to find on Google, but if you just look for the East Boat Launch Ramp, you should be able to find it. Let's see. We're going to be there, like I said, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. We already have probably 5 or 6 folks bringing radios. It should be a good time. There was also one of the motivators for this event. So we wanted to try some new things, right? So what PCARS has run into at a lot of their POTA events is a lot of people are interested and they come and they bring their radios, but there's only so many bands that you can operate on, right? So they'd have so many people coming that only so many people could set up their radios. So the idea was, why don't we kind of split this up? Let's do multiple clubs relatively close. So PCARS will be about 15 minutes away from where we're at Lake Milton. And the other idea that we had was, what if we had a group that broke off from the folks at the pavilion and went on like a backpacking or hiked into a spot and did like a real portable POTA thing. So there's a trail at the western side of West Branch, and we're thinking that we're going to set up a little mini group that'll go out and do activation on that side of the park, so we can get as many folks on the air as possible. So that's the plan for that. Nick and Gary will be burning burgers and dogs again. So Lucy, tell them how good Nick and Gary's burgers were last time.
Fantastic.
They're fantastic.
One word review.
Fantastic. So anyways, they also invited us, PCARS invited us, if folks want to jump around between our event and their event out at Lake Milton. Give you a chance to see kind of how they do POTA versus how we might do POTA. They do a lot of QRP stuff, whereas like at our last POTA event, we did a lot of, everybody was running 100 watts basically. So we're gonna link the 147.015 and the W8WKY repeaters together. So if you're driving out there and you get lost, feel free to give us a shout on there. You'll probably get into 015 a little bit better than Doylestown. So like I said, there's flyers on the bar, and hopefully we'll have a really good time, a good turnout. So that's about all I got. So thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks, Josh. We appreciate it. And this flyer was made up by, I just chopped off the top of it, and
John from P-Cars.
John did it? Okay. And you have copies if anybody's interested? Okay, July 27th, that's a week from this Saturday, so promises to be a good time. And Nick and I burn burgers with the best of them, I'm telling you. And they're not bad, as burnt burgers go. How do you like your burger? Well done. All right, next up. Okay, I had a slide. I couldn't find the picture for this. I couldn't, and I see 4 o'clock came and I had to cut it off. I was working on it this afternoon. So there you have it. There you go. All right. What I will do, though, I'll have that picture for next time when we do the recap. All right. Bob, unfortunately, Dave has a recital tonight. Recital?
Yeah, that works. Yes, a music recital.
Does that work? Okay. Recital, and he's tied up. KG4 SCK is assisting him, and Mark called in sick, so, and that would be this guy right here.
Never seen him.
Yeah, me neither. Whew. We're the lucky ones. At any rate, the fox hunt is going on. It will be Saturday morning. You're going to meet with, I think, Mark's going to be at Bueller's. Okay, Mark, this guy will be at Bueller's. And Dave is going to be at the destination site, the other place. So you're going to check in with Mark at 10 o'clock, sometime between 10 and 10:15.
Yeah.
Okay?
Definitely be gone by 10:30. So
Yeah, by 10:30, everybody, Mark's going to be gone. If you're going to show up after 10:30, it's too late. You missed the boat, or the car, or the truck, or whatever it is you're in. You missed it. That being said, we have the Fox. We have it's a go. Just unfortunately, we don't have either one of these guys here tonight to go through some details, but you will get a packet Saturday morning, and it's a sealed packet, by the way. We'll record your mileage. Okay, the winner is the person who finds the fox in the fewest miles, not the fastest miles, the fewest miles. So if you are like what's his name, Mario Andretti. Yeah, so, if you're going to put the pedal to the metal, ain't going to win. You might get in an accident, but other than that, you're not going to win. But anyway, it's the fewest miles. There is a prize. The prize is some kind of pie, blackberry, blueberry.
yeah, but not a raspberry.
So we were fighting over pie. That's a first world problem if I've ever heard one. Anyway, it's going to be a lot of fun, and I forgot the 2 antennas. Does anybody want to participate and not have an antenna? Because I do have them, and I forgot to bring them today. Okay. I have, if you change your mind, I have 2 antennas that can be used. I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be driving my lovely oldest daughter back to Austin, Texas. So we're going to leave Saturday morning early, be there Sunday afternoon, and then We'll see what happens. I will eventually get back here. I promise. By Saturday. All right. Are there any questions about the fox hunt? I mean, we've been beating this up, and we made antennas, and we had a fox hunt presentation a couple months ago. We made the antennas. We should be ready for bear on I-10, about a mile out of Shakytown. This here is the rubber duck, and we're about to put the hammer down.
Hey, that sounded all right.
Did it? All right, here we go. Hey, we're at the end. Questions, comments, concerns. Is impeachment a concern? I just want to know. You guys are not with me. Anything for the good of the cause? Anybody? What?
He's talking to the camera guy.
What?
I wasn't even looking at you.
You shave your beard off and you talk to the cameraman?
I waited till the day after I spent 8 hours in the sun to do it, so it was neon face.
Hey,
A little bit of curl.
I gotta tell you, you look a lot better than Dustin did when he shaved his head.
Wow. Wow, that was cold. That was definitely cold. We're normally nicer than this, really. Believe me. All right, 50-50 raffle. Where are we?
50-50, last chance.
All right, we're going to do a 50-50 raffle. We're going to have an adjournment here, and then we have a very, very good presentation from Jason. He's going to talk about just concerns and things that you might want to think about when putting together or re-putting together, reassembling Johnny 5, and Johnny 5 being your radio station.
Johnny 5 is alive.
Yeah. So anyway, Jason, thank you for stepping up with that. And I would like to, Russ, we can have Betty do it again.
She is very sticky at the moment. I don't know if you want Betty to do it.
Well, so are you saying there might be like 3 or 4 winners?
Okay, we didn't get very much money this time. I think it's $55 is the prize.
All right, that'll work. Sit it down.
That was
I'm glad I didn't give him the microphone.
for you. It was probably.
Betty, you want to help?
Come over here.
Well, Lucy can do it too in her stead. Or we have Linda as a backup.
What do you eat? You share with me.
Oh, there's plenty. Don't worry, everybody. We got 16 tickets at a time.
I hope you like counting, Russ. Dividing.
Pick 9, 4 times.
All right, good job.
That's still 2.
It's all right. Russ can drop one.
Yay, a hand for Betty. And I don't want any of you to fall into the same trap that I did, but Betty is spelled B-E-T-T-E.
That's okay, because on one of my nets, I kept calling her Barbara.
Well,
All
that's
right, you ready?
Yep, ready.
200.
I got it!
6
Mm-hmm.
0.
Hmm.
Let's see. Let me pick one of mine. 6 0 what? 6.
Mark! All right, nicely done, Mark. Congratulations. Aren't you glad you came? Mark, you're a winner!
Didn't you win last one?
No,
Mark,
month
you,
Last time I won was when we were at Penny's.
Mark, you're a winner.
I know.
So all that stuff I said before the meeting about you being a loser because you lost 5 straight games of chess, 5 straight.
I know.
You're a winner now.
Yeah.
Don't spend it all in one day.
I need a motion for adjournment, please. All right, Stefan, Mike.
They never pick me.
Gerlach. I don't even know if I have another slide or not. I don't. Okay. We can take 5, literally 5.
and then sit in it.
Butts in seats. That seemed to work.
I got this one right here. I'm all set. I am wirelessly wired for sound. All right, let's go ahead and get started.
Here we go.
Are we on, Scott?
That's like my dog's name is Wego, and I say, here, Wego.
That was terrible, Gary. That was terrible.
I am sitting down now.
That was terrible. All right. So Gary very graciously asked me to put this together yesterday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But no. So this is this is a presentation that I gave to Wayne Amateur Radio a couple of months ago. This is a collection of thoughts on building your ham shack. Mostly geared toward technician class people, newer people to the hobby. Hopefully some people who've been around for a while will also gain some stuff from it. Some additional thoughts though that's going to permeate everything about this talk. So the first one is the radio that you have is better than the radio that you don't have. The antenna that you have is better than the antenna that you don't have. Don't try to be perfect in every aspect all at once. You see a theme developing here. You will spend more money than you wanted to. You will make mistakes. You try to minimize them, but you're never going to eliminate them. And you will be happy, though, probably, that you spent more money than you wanted to. But just like everything else in the world, you can buy on a spectrum of complete junk to complete overkill. So buyer beware as we go through this. So these are the main parts of any shack. Now, obviously, when we talk about a shack, we're not talking about a literal shack, although someone may here have a radio in a literal shack. The lore behind the term shack was in the 20s when you were building a spark gap radio that had the potential to burst into flames. You did not build your spark gap radio in your house, or your house might turn into flames. But the moniker sticks. So your shack is wherever your radios are, essentially. The components of it. You have a radio. That's important when doing radios, is that you have a radio. But there's other elements. Feed line is something we think about. Antennas we've talked a lot about before. Power. You have to power these things. And grounding, you want to ground these things, and that's separate from power. And then there's you. You are a component of your ham shack. Unless I guess you use FT8 in auto mode, then maybe you're not a part of your ham shack. But other than that, you're part of your ham shack. We're not really going to talk about radios in any great detail. Radios are going to be DC powered. Always, especially for HF, always get a radio with the standard 3-to-1 tuner in it for your ham shack. They still make radios that don't have them in them. I don't know why. Get one with a tuner in it. You will be happy that you did. Approach purchasing radios like a major purchase, like a car, a major appliance, anything like that. Plan ahead, know what your needs are, do some comparison shopping, consider used. There is a group of hams, just like in golf or technology or pick a hobby, where when the latest thing comes out, they have to have the latest thing, and they sell the last latest thing they had, right? When the ICOM 7300 came out, I'm blanking on the model at the time, but like everyone in the world sold their, I don't remember what it was. Yes, yeah, there was a whole bunch of FT991s for sale. Like people sold the last thing they bought to buy a new one. Now, There's obviously somewhat of a technology penalty if you are really interested in the latest and greatest, but at the same time, there's nothing wrong with a 1 or 2 generation old radio. Now, what I will say is don't go too old unless you're really into fixing electronics or really interested in the history of radios. Capacitors do wear out. Electronics do wear out. Like, that is a thing, right? Really expensive radios are really expensive for a reason. Cheap radios are really cheap for a reason. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff in the middle. For mobile stuff, though, most people use a mobile style radio in their shack. Excuse me. Most people do not purchase what's called a DC to daylight radio or a transceiver for 2 meters and 70 centimeters. Those are very nice radios. They're also very expensive. Most people don't do it. You can buy a mobile, add a DC power supply, put up a nice antenna, and enjoy talking on repeaters and on UHF. Don't use HTs inside, ever. And I'm serious, that's not a joke. Don't use HTs inside, ever. Performance at best is bad. If you must use an HT inside, at least put it on a little piece of feed line and get the antenna outside. We'll talk about why in a minute. In my shack right now, I've got an ICOM IC7300. It's connected to 2 different antennas on a AB switch. There's 100 to 200 foot feed lines. If you've been to my house, which a surprising number of you have been over the years, I have a full-sized off-center fed dipole of the kind that we made, I don't know, a year or so ago for the club project, and I have a Gap Titan. Those are both connected to the ICOM 7300. I have a Yaesu 8900 mobile, possibly the best mobile radio ever constructed by mankind. It's connected to a Diamond V2000A. I think it's a 3000A. I think that's a typo. It's about 25 feet off the ground. It has 75 feet of feed line to it. In my office, and we'll talk about this in a few minutes, I have an ICOM ID 4100 that is fed about 20 feet through a window jumper to an antenna clamped on a gutter. We'll talk about that in a few minutes too. Any questions? And obviously, if you have questions, go ahead and interrupt. So power of the RF kind. Radio output power matters, but only to a point. Power can let you talk further. Power can let you push through some, but not all obstacles. Power cannot make up for poor design choices, and power cannot overcome geographical limitations. Doesn't matter how many thousands of amps you throw at your VHF antenna, if you're in a valley, you are not going to penetrate the wall of the hill or the mountain that you're up against. It's just not going to happen. If you really want to do it, you should move or operate portable or give up. So you have to think about some of these things, right? It's also important to note that power is not just what is put out by the radio. The power starts with what comes out of the radio, but that's not all the elements of it. I get asked this a lot. You likely do not need any sort of amplifier right now. You will know when you need an amplifier. And the answer is not when I'm just getting started or rebuilding my ham shack. I think I might want to buy an amplifier now, mostly because there's a pretty consistent operator on Reunion Island, which is azimuthally for one of the furthest contacts you can get from my station that I can hear, and he can't hear me in the clear. And I find it very irritating, and I am going to work this guy, possibly by being an amplifier. But other than...
It cost me $6,000.
I will talk to this guy. But in all seriousness, I have made, I don't even know how many thousands of contacts all over the world. I have DXCC like a lot of you. Most of that was done on an off-center fed dipole at 100 watts. In the low spot of the solar cycle, a lot of those contacts were. One S unit on a properly calibrated radio is about 6 dB of received power, which is a 300% change in power. So raw output power is not necessarily going to move the needle a whole lot when you're talking about the reception of somebody at the other side. So why do we talk about this? Well, I've talked about this in other ones. I'm not going to belabor this, but you have to think about your shack, your radios in your shack as a system. And you have to think about those in the system of what's called your effective radiated power, or your ERP. And like all good electronics, you should think about these in decibel watts, not watts, because it's easier, believe it or not, because things that are very complicated become very easy addition and subtraction problems when you convert to decibel.
What did you say?
What?
What?
I'm not talking to you anymore. I don't even know who you are. This guy with no beard that showed up. So converting watts to decibel watts is you take the log base 10 of your watts times 10, that gives you dB watts. There's a button on your calculator that'll do this. There's a button on the Windows calculator that will do this. Your iPhone calculator will do this. You don't have to do it by hand. I don't do it by hand. You can get a slide rule if you're really interested in doing it.
I have one if anybody wants to buy it.
I'll give you 50
It's
cents
really
for
nice.
it.
It comes with a really fabulous leather case and everything.
Does it have a pocket protector?
No, I'm keeping it.
You're keeping the pocket protector? All right. 50 watt mobile is about 17 decibel watts, dBW. So it's 16.9897, so it's 17 decibel watts. In the other direction, you take decibel watts divided by 10, so 10th to the decibel watts over 10 is watts. Again, your calculator will do this for you. There's a button for it. 17 decibel watts calculates back to 50 watts. As a matter of fact, you can see here, 17 dBW is actually 50.12 watts, which of course we just rounded to 17. Make sense? Everybody whip out your calculator. We're going to do some practice. No. But here's why this matters, right? You have to calculate what your shack's effective radiated power was, because it's not just about the power that leaves your radio. So your effective radiated power is the dB watts out of your radio minus the feed loss, which is actually gain. It's a negative gain. We'll talk about that in a minute. Plus what your antenna gain is, because antennas can also have losses, which is negative gain. So in this example, right, you have your radio's max output power. Let's say you've got it cranked up to 100 watts. You have feed line losses. I included connectors here just because people like to worry about connectors. Connectors at our power levels in ham, and I'm including full legal limit, do not really create any significant power loss. If you were running like a 200,000 watt AM station, yes, you might care about that. At ham power levels, you do not care about this. Eliminating connectors is more about reliability and not having to tighten everything down all the time. And then antennas have gains and losses as well. Even a dipole has a gain over a theoretical antenna, which is kind of an interesting concept. But here's why this matters. So this was my home shack setup because, like I said, I moved to 4100 upstairs. My radio is 50 watts out, which is 16 dBW. It was going into 50 foot of LMR 400, which has a loss at 2 meters of about 0.6 dB. So that's a negative gain. The Diamond V2000, though, is 6.2 dB of gain. So we add all these up. 17 minus 0.06 plus 6.2 is 23.8 dBW, and you say, but then you convert that back to watts, and suddenly my home mobile station is putting out 240 watts of effective radiated power out the gate. That's pretty good. I didn't buy an amp, right? Any questions?
Can you go through the base 10 operation again?
Yes, buy a calculator, find the button, find the button that's marked log 10. No. But in all seriousness, I joke, but literally there's like, you can get online calculators, you can do it in a spreadsheet. Your phone probably has the button if you put it in scientific mode. Like, do a couple practices with it and you'll be perfect forever to do it. If that's something they should actually put in the technician test rather than worrying about types of power supplies. Yeah.
The loss that's calculated for the coax, is that per so many feet that you calculate?
Yeah, so like LMR 400 is 1.8 dB at 100 feet, so cut it in half for 50 feet, yeah. When you buy coax, I think I talked about this in the next slide actually, or one of the slides, but yeah, when you buy coax, it'll have loss measured either in feet or meters, depending on which manufacturer you got it from, so look at the units, because that does matter. But here's some other examples. Same setup, 35 watt mobile, transmitting on 445, which is kind of right in the middle of the repeater band. So 35 watts is 15.4 dBW. I lose quite a bit in the feed line. UHF is one of the hardest things to get through feed line. The same antenna is an 8.4 dB gain on 440, 22 dB watts. My UHF signal is 164 watts effective radiated power. Here's why feed line matters. Let's change out the LMR 400 with RG58. Same math except for this loss number of the coax. Now I'm only putting out 71 watts. So how about a 40 meter dipole at 100 watts? Let's use RG58, which is a pretty inexpensive type of coax. So 20 watts, 20 dBW is what 100 watts is. I lose 2.2 dBW. I'm going into a dipole, so the gain is 0. My signal is 60 watts. I upgrade the feed line to RG8X, 79 watts. I upgrade the feed line to LMR 400, it's 89 watts. And that's going into a dipole. Now you stick a Yagi on there with some gain, now you're talking a couple hundred watts of effective radiated power. Why do I talk about this? Because feed line really, really matters, right? It's not the sexiest, exciting thing to spend your ham money on, but it's one of the things that's for a fairly reasonable incremental cost will give you exceptionally better performance with the same type of equipment. I personally put LMR 400 on everything unless I have to suspend it from a tree like the middle of my dipole. In that case, I have a piece of 8X that just goes to the ground, barrel connected into a piece of LMR 400 and goes back in the shack. Another reason we care about ERP, HTs. HTs are the ultimate in loss trade-off. HTs need to be ultra portable. Therefore, everything has to be small and light. Antennas get in the way, and your fleshy sack of water, that's you, that carries your brain around, is terrible for reception and transmission. The 2 meter loss of a rubber duck antenna, at best, is 5 dB, right? So the gain is negative 5 dB of that antenna. If you take your 5 watts, which is 7 dBW, you subtract it from 5, your 2 dBWs becomes 1.5 watts out. And that's when it comes out of the antenna before it tries to pass through you as a fleshy bag of water. So this is why I say don't ever use an HT inside. Put the same HT outside. If you put it on a Comet GP1, it's 4 feet tall. It actually has positive 3 dB gain of antenna on 2 meters and a modest feed line of RG8X. Your 5 watt handheld comes out to be 8 watts of transmission power, and you're up higher because height is king in VHF. If you have a hard time getting outside, you can use a window jumper. A window jumper I have in a little bit. It's a little tiny flat piece of ribbon type coax that has connectors, one on each side. You run a feed line from your radio to the ribbon goes through your window or a soft seal on a door. and then it goes to another piece of feed line. Even with the loss from the window jumper, your HT now is putting out 6 watts. So not only do you have a whole lot more power outside, your antenna is actually up in the air. Getting into the repeater is not the same thing as having a good signal that people want to listen to and talk to you with. For modest expense, you can quadruple your performance and have a clearer signal simply by hooking up your HT to the outside to get into a repeater. So something to think about when you're building your shack. We talked about feed line losses, why they really matter. Here's an example of charts. One thing you'll notice with feed line charts, when you get up here, this is a big jump. 5 to 10 is really not a big jump. 10 to 144, kind of a big jump. 5 to 440, that's a lot, right? But as you can see here, when you're down at 5 megahertz, LMR 400, RG8X, RG213, RG58, they're all about the same. But you can see pretty quickly where a good quality piece of coax really matters as you get up in the frequencies. And remember, the top of the HF band is 30 megahertz. So the takeaway with this is prioritize quality feed line in your radio spending. It's not the sexiest, it's not the most exciting piece of your radio. It's one of the foundational pieces, though, that a lot of people overlook when they're trying to build fixed location stations. It's one thing in your car, for example, you stick a mobile in, you buy like the mag mount with that little thin piece of RG176 or whatever it is, and it goes 6 feet and clamps on your window, right? My shack's in the basement. I have coax that comes out of a wall jack into the radio. So out of the radio, into a wall hole, up a wall, across the ceiling, out a thing, up the side of the house, around to my garage, up to the roof, all the way across the detached garage, up a pole to an antenna. It was a one-time cost. I think it was $140 for the piece of coax at the time I bought it. I felt sad when I bought the piece of coax. I was like, this is a lot of money for a piece of wire. But I paid it one time, and I've had it for 8 years now. I think the current one's been up there 8 years. So, I don't know, $12 a year, $14 a year, right, as an investment. Any questions on feed loss or radiated power? Is this puzzled or squinting?
I'm blind, so.
Oh, okay, all right. I couldn't tell who was puzzlement or squinting, so.
Just me looking to.
All right.
Just looking.
And what?
Widescreen.
Yeah. So antennas, like radios, we're really not going to talk about them a whole lot. I just did a presentation on antennas a couple months ago. As I mentioned, you can and will make thousands of contacts on a simple wire dipole. People get very concerned about hex beams and spider beams and Yagis and pick a thing, right? You can and will make thousands of contacts on a piece of wire. How many contacts do we make at field day, Nick, on a piece of wire?
754?
Yeah. The field day antenna was a very nice piece of wire hanging in the air, right? We built a 14% off-center fed dipole as a club build. There was so much interest in that, we might offer that again this fall. You can tune a 14% off-center fed dipole for anything between 80 and 6 meters except for 60 meters. It will tune with the aforementioned 3-to-1 tuner inside of your radio. I just rebuilt mine a couple weeks ago due to an unfortunate tree failure. The antenna did not fail. The tree that it was connected to failed and took out one of the legs. And then I figured, well, it's time to replace the wire anyway because it's been up there for 6 or 7 years. For VHF and UHF, buy the highest gain antenna you can afford and install it as high as you possibly can, including prioritization, the feed line that you're going to feed this antenna with. You can buy a Comet GP3 for $110, a Diamond, I'm blanking on what the part number for the dual bander one is. $100. If you go to Hamvention or a ham show, someone will have a knockoff for $50. I gave one to Ben, that the GP3 knockoff that I think, Ben, are you still using that thing? Yeah. Yeah. So
with that, so I have an HT for 2 meters at home, but I have it hooked up to an HT amp. So with the 50 watts and that HT, I'm making it all the way from Strasburg to the repeater.
yeah, because your antenna's outside. Yeah. So, right. So for a modest investment, you can do a lot. You can do a lot. When you care about antenna gain on HF, almost never. Right. Remember, gains can be negative, which are losses. There are some exceptions, such as overcoming space limitations. Right. Then you might want to worry about gains, like if you have to put in a mag loop, or you're trying to put in a really cramped, like zigzaggy dipole, which you can put dipoles in a zigzag pattern. Then you'll have some losses, but in general, you don't care about that. On VHF and UHF, you always care about losses, gains and losses, because gains has a huge role to play in overcoming the feed line losses that you cannot avoid in your station. Make sense? All right. So, in summary, do not be this guy. He looks happy. He's not happy. Or at least the people who are listening to him is not happy. I made a surprising number of repeater contacts with the Club J-pole build stuck in a pile of wood because I was testing something and I'm like, that actually works pretty well. So I left it there for a couple of weeks. I talked to Doug several times on it, as a matter of fact, and then sent him pictures of the fact that I was talking to him on a pole stuck in a pile of wood. We'll talk about this one in a few minutes. This is an antenna I have clamped to a gutter. And of course, this is my main diamond antenna that's on the end of my garage. This is the end of the feed line. And I just recently added a little Mesh-tastic solar node right there, actually this afternoon. So, all right. Any questions on feed lines, power, any of that kind of stuff? All right. Power of the electric kind. In summary, we do not want this. Modern radios do not need tons and tons of electricity. My ICOM 7300 at DC draws an absolute maximum amount of 21 amps at 12 volts. My Yaesu 8900 draws an absolute max of 8.5 amps at 12 volts. When you calculate that into AC, I have all of this stuff plugged into one outlet in my basement that is also shared with a bunch of other stuff. Now, if you're putting in amps or 20 radios or all kind of stuff, yeah, then you've got to look at some special power things. But if you have a radio or two, your standard 120 volt 15 amp outlet is going to work just fine. However, if you trip the breaker even one time, you have done something wrong. As a ham, you do want to learn and ask about electric power. This is the one part of the amateur radio hobby that can actually kill you. Just like anything else, don't fear it. Use common sense. Double check your work. And unsaid, but don't believe everything you read on the internet. The internet lies to you a lot. Get comfortable with basic DC wiring. Ham radio stuff is all DC powered. Some cheap and easy things. Red black zip cord. You can buy this basically anywhere. Fork antennas. These are ring terminals. These are called butt splices. You can buy a $12 crimper on Amazon that you'll have for the rest of your life. You can buy these by the bag of 1,000 on Amazon for a lifetime supply. You should buy them. You should get used to using them, and you should enjoy that. Get a cheap heat gun. All of these things are heat shrink tubing. Helps with the flexing to keep them safe. You can get a cheap heat gun on Amazon for 20 bucks. So 15 bucks. So a set of wire strippers you can get for about 10 bucks. A cheap crimp tool is about 15 bucks. Cheap heat gun's about 20 bucks. So for 35 bucks, you'll have a lifetime stable of all of the tools that you need to do basic DC power. If you want to be really awesome, you should get into Anderson Power Poles, which is like investing, because you will just pour money into them and just accrue them forever. And then you'll get irritated when you have something that doesn't use a power pole and immediately cut it off and put a power pole on it, and then realize that you've just gone through like 300 power pole ends. But you don't have to do that, although I will applaud you for doing it when you do it. Cable gauge, thickness of the cable. The cable gauge should be 125% of the planned rated maximum amperage. That is the thing that you put the fuse on the DC line for. That is not your guess of what your power is going to be. If you have a line that is fused for 30 amps, you should use 10 gauge wire. If you have a line that is fused for 20 amps, you should use 12 gauge wire. This is not guessing. Do the incredibly trivial math on what gauge wire that you need to do. For long runs, use thicker cable than necessary. There is voltage drop at DC, pretty bad voltage drop at DC. By long runs, I mean like 20 feet or more. I don't mean a mile. Don't try to run DC power a mile. Like a 6-foot jumper between your power supply and your radio, fine. If you're starting to build out on that, use thicker wire. Again, we do not want your house to turn into flames. You don't want your house to turn into flames. No one wants your house to turn into flames. It can turn into flames. Fuses. Always fuse as close as the radio as possible. If your radio does not have one already, they usually do. Do not cut it off. I cannot tell you how many radios used I see where someone went in and cut the fuse off. And I think, why did you do that? But they're not usually there for me to ask them that question, because they probably don't have a good answer. Probably because the fuse blew because they did something wrong and it irritated them and they cut it off. The fuse blew because you did something wrong. I see this all the time. Do not twist and tape DC power lines. You can touch DC power lines. You will not get shocked, probably. People will then think, well, I'm just going to twist these together and use electrical tape. Do not do that. That will make you sad, and your house could turn into flames. Minor increased cost is well worth the insurance from having a catastrophic problem. Other thing about power supplies, always purchase full copper wire. There's something out there that's called copper-clad aluminum or CCA wiring. CCA wiring is fine for not antennas. CCA is fine for radio speakers. They will create all of this zip wire, which is just black and red tied together. They'll make billions and billions of miles on it and try to sell it as both DC power and speaker wire. If you use CCA wire for significant amperage of DC power, you will become sad. The things in your shack may become sad and melty and possibly crispy. I cannot emphasize enough, do not purchase copper-clad aluminum wire. As an aside, this also goes for network cables. With devices becoming more and more doing power over Ethernet, there was a time when, to cut costs, cheaper network cable vendors were selling copper-clad aluminum powers, and then when you plug a 48-volt PoE device into them that draws any amount of power, things get melty and crispy and sad. Any questions?
I have a story on the used copper.
Yeah?
I used the CCA on an amplifier in a car, and it was just speaker wire, and that wire probably still lives in the seats for the rest of that car's life.
Mm-hmm.
Embedded.
Yeah. I figured you had a story when you started nodding at the CCA, but Scott's story is accurate. Under power, copper-clad aluminum will fail, and you will be sad in one or more ways. And apparently Scott's car is also sad.
I don't have it anymore. Somebody else is sad.
Someone else's car is now sad. Power supplies. This is the Megawatt S400-12. The technician class exam spends an unreasonably stupid amount of time on the types of power supplies, which causes needless fretting. If you have recently taken the technician class test, you remember, is this a type A power supply? Is this a type B power supply? Is this a type AB power supply? Is this a type of power supply that was brought to us by aliens from another planet? Like, it's ridiculous. It's 2024. Power supplies are switching. Don't fear reasonably well-made modern switching supplies. Is there garbage out there? Yes. Does everybody have a story about hunting down RF interference from a switching power supply in the USB charger on their couch? Maybe. A modern, well-made switching power supply is not something to be feared. Could it create noise? Maybe. When you are at the point that that noise bothers your shack, you will know it and be prepared to spend the money on a linear power supply. I have used an S412 as my main power supply for many years without any problems whatsoever. I have several of them. As a fun fact, if you break open any commercial or high-end ham radio repeater system, what do you think is in the repeater system? Power supply, switching power supply. This cost $65. This company used to sell on eBay. There were so many knockoffs, I think they just quit. If you search for Megawatt S412, you will get taken to a very odd-looking website that looks like it was made by a teenager on MySpace in 1997. It is shockingly a really responsive company, and you will get a very nice quality power supply when you buy it from them. So, there we go. All right. Getting outside. Obviously, best choice is a pass-through conduit. It is understandable when you or your spouse do not want you to drill a large hole in the side of your house, because mankind has spent thousands of years building things to keep the outside out. Don't ask your wife is a strategy. That is a strategy.
It just appeared on the chimney.
I have no idea how that got there, honey. Keep in mind the feed line length issues that we talked about. Drilling a hole may not really be the worst idea if you have to traverse your entire house to get outside through that one hole that already exists in your house. Look for other options. While MFJ still exists at least, and I'm sure other people make them too, there are in-window pass-throughs. Reef Nash, W2HTO, he's a club member. We put one of these in his house. It just sits in the window. It's got a little wooden board. You cut the board to the right length, the width of your window. You can paint it. You shut the window and you put a little stick. You can put like a little piece of weather stripping on it. And then there's ports. Ports go in the coax on one side, and on the other side of the window seal, there is surprisingly another port for the rest of the coax. This is interesting. This is the Comet CTC 50. This is a window pass-through jumper. I have seen these for years. I'm like, those can't possibly work. They actually work.
They're the ones with the real thin plastic.
Yeah, they're a real thin. Yeah, there's a center conductor, and then it has a flat ribbon dielectric. Yeah. It's about this long. You put it through the soft seal on the underside of your window or in a door. You take some loss. But if it saves you 50 feet on a feed line, or it saves you from drilling a hole that your spouse doesn't like, or your marriage, right? Yeah.
If your SWR goes to infinity with one of those, you've broken it. Ask me how I know.
Yes. Important life lesson: when your SWR is infinity, you have a problem. Other than that, they're great. Yeah. So, getting outside, basic do's. Keep feed lines away from major power consumers. Your dishwasher, your air conditioning unit, if your your dryer's electric, things like that. If you have crossing power lines is fine. If you have to cross power lines, cross them as perpendicular as you can. The reason for that is if you run a power line and your feed line in parallel for any length of time, there's these cool things called waves, and the waves escape the one thing and go into the other thing. But if you cross them perpendicularly, they don't do that by physics. So you can take your thing, you cross it perpendicular for a while, and then go on your merry little way. Seal up all openings with duct seal. You can buy special ham radio goo at places that will remain unnamed. It'll cost you $50. Or you can go to Lowe's and go to the section where they sell conduit. And on the bottom shelf in the electric section, there's this big bin of these bricks of plastic duct seal that cost $5. It's exactly the same stuff. It's a goo, you break it apart, you stuff it in the hole, it becomes hard, and you saved like $50. Yeah.
I work for the railroad, we use duct seal all the time, and we have problems with mice getting in our cases. You take some steel wool and you work it into the duct seal, the mice will not chew through that duct seal.
That's cool. So you you kind of like just knead the steel wool into the duct before?
Just spread it out and feed it in, and that keeps the...
Better grounding too.
All right, that's the. Can you do an instant replay on that? That's the tip of the night. Thank you. That's I did not know that. Some basic do nots. Do not run cabling through your chimney. Yes, people do it. No, they should not do it. Do not run it through in-use dryer vents. Shockingly, people do this. You should not do this. Do not run it through the air conditioning power line or the refrigerant line, which is a very tempting pre-existing hole in the side of your house. Don't do that. It will be very noisy and sad. Do not run your white radio cables through your electric service entrance. That is for your electric service only. Brought to you by the power company. In all seriousness, don't do these things. These are actually all dangerous to do for various reasons. Mounting antennas. Trees are great for HF. Trees are very terrible for UHF and VHF. Just like you as a fleshy bag of water, the large, not so fleshy water of trees, also very bad for radio. Invest in quality mounting solutions when you can. I cannot highly recommend enough a gable mount. This goes on the end of a gable. This is the end of your house. It's a cross beam. There's a clamp that goes here, and you go to Home Depot and you buy a $15 piece of 1.5" EMT conduit, and you stick it down in there and you bolt it on, and you have a ready-made mast on the end of your house that will hold a surprising amount of things. Tripod mounts are nice. Tripod mounts do revolve drilling into your roof, which is the scariest type of drilling into your house. You will want to invest in tar to close up the holes after you have drilled into your roof, but it's a known quantity. You can get creative. Clamps on gutters. This was a random piece of technology that's for this. So this little armature piece is for CB radios for truckers to clamp on their mirrors. So if you've ever seen a trucker that has the CB radios on their mirrors, it's clamped on with one of those things. I had bought that when I was trying to figure out how to mount the mobile in my truck. Not that I had a mirror for it, but it was a neat little clampy thing, and I decided not to use it, and I forgot about it. So after I bought the window jumper, I said, "Oh, what? I'm going to put a antenna in my office," which is how we ended up with woodpile antenna for a couple of weeks. And then I came across this, and I'm like, "Oh, I bet you I can do something fascinating with this." So that, all I did was I reamed out the hole in this a little bigger with a piece of Dremel, put some flat washers in there, stuck a UHF barrel connector in, screwed on a mobile, an SSB 14 on one side and a piece of coax on the other, and works great. Scraped a little tiny bit of paint off the aluminum gutter to get a metal-to-metal contact, and the entire gutter is a ground plane for the antenna. It's not perfect, but it works pretty well. If you get a smaller antenna, because this is admittedly sort of a ridiculously large antenna for this, you can get a little 10, 12 incher. No one will notice it. If you have an HOA, nosy, annoying neighbors, it'll disappear right in the background. Drip loops, always use them. Water is insidious and will get in anything possible. Here, the basic convention of a drip loop is you have a thing, it has cable, have a loop where the water will drip off before it goes up into whatever hole you drilled or did not drill into the side of your house. Before it goes into any enclosure, so this is the mast for my Gap Titan. The wire comes down here. It's a little hard to see at this angle, but there's a piece of cable. These two come up and down. All three of them are tied together. They loop down on the bottom and go up into this utility box. This is actually where most of my feed lines go into my house. This is actually, there's a little overhang in my dining room. That's actually hanging upside down. I put a piece of 4-inch PVC. All of the wires come in, droop down, and go up into the house, so no water will get in. Also, before you go into any connector, if you're putting up something, a lot of times you'll put up something on a mast, you tighten down you put a short feed line coming off the antenna just to get it up in the air, and then you're going to connect it to your real feed line. And you even wrap that coax piece up with tape. Put a drip loop above that so you're not running the water and wearing away the tape at that connection. Come on. All right. Walk over here now. Technology has failed me. Sealing connectors. For anything that's permanent, seal all coax connections well. If you do not seal your coax connections well, the dielectric in your coax will become a sponge and you will have very interesting problems with your radio. If you remember, about 4 years ago, we went through a series of network problems at the repeater site. One day, John went in, and there was some suspicious water at the bottom of the Ethernet panel, and John made a little tiny nick in the coax line and then proceeded to get about 4 gallons of water out of one piece of coax, or out of one piece of Ethernet. What is good? Multiple wraps of Scotch Super 33 Plus. Electrical tape is another place not to skimp out on purchasing. Can you go to Walmart and buy black tape that looks like electrical tape? Yes, you can. Is it electrical tape? It is not. Scotch, what?
It's just sticky vinyl.
It is sticky vinyl. Super 33 Plus is probably the most versatile tape. It's not that much more expensive. You will be much happier for having spent the extra dollar. Something better, get some self-vulcanizing rubber tape, wrap that around a couple times, and then a couple wraps of Super 88. Super 88 is a real thick electrical tape. It's usually used for like high voltage, like 480 volt, like industrial applications. Best of all, several racks of Super 33, followed by Coax Seal, I'm sorry. Coax Seal is basically duct seal in a strip format that is very gooey and nasty. But it does work really, really well. Especially if you want to make like a nice tight spiral rather than try to like clump together duct seal, which will look kind of weird. Coax seal is really nice. It is incredibly sticky and it will never come off the feed line that you put it on. So once you've put it on there, be happy that that's where it is. Dipole longevity. Make sure your dipole slides freely. As I said, you'll make thousands of contacts with a wire antenna, but not if it breaks and is on the ground all the time. The biggest mistake that people make is they put it up in a tree and they go to this trunk and they take a rope and they tie it on the trunk and they go, my antenna is up. And then the wind blows and they go, my antenna is down. The way to do this successfully, loop it through trees, take a 5-gallon bucket on each end, do not use the handle. Tell me how I know. How do you know? I've done it and it breaks. Take a 5-gallon bucket, get a $5 bag of play sand, Figure out how much weight you need in each bucket to hold it still, and make sure that if you hit the bucket, your antenna slides through the trees. Because then when this tree, and that tree all move in a different direction at the same time, your antenna will not break until one of the trees falls on it. Then you have a different problem.
You get the covered bucket so you don't get water?
Yeah, you get the bucket with the lid on it. It'll last 4 or 5 years. Eventually the UV will destroy it, and then you go buy another $3 bucket and put a lid on it, or a paint can, save a paint can. I mean, doesn't matter what it is.
Too much RF.
The battery in this might be going. You know what? I have a section on grounding that I'm actually just going to skip since we're getting late and we've done topics on grounding before. Basically, grounding is good. The one thing I will say is safety grounding is the most important. In many cases, this is taken care for you, but you have to check. What do I mean by that? If you have an outlet that looks like this without the grounding plug, do not buy those stupid little blocks that has the little ring that you like attach on the nut in the middle. That doesn't do anything. Basically, at the end of the day, make sure any DC powered equipment has the same ground as your AC powered equipment, or you will create a voltage differential, you will touch it, you will get burned or shocked, and you will be sad. All we're going to say about lightning is this. Do a risk assessment, and I don't mean like a formal 8-day study of lightning in your area, right? What's your exposure? Do you have a dipole at 20 feet in a valley, or you have an 80-foot tower on top of a hill? That's a big difference in your likelihood of getting struck with electricity. The other question, what can you afford to fix? I could do the full spec compliant, trench around my house, put in CAD welded number 6 twisted pair grounding cables and have the best grounding system ever, and probably spend about $10,000 in excavation costs to do it. Or, if I forget to unplug my radio and it blows up, I buy another radio for $1,000, right? Can you mitigate it with other methods, such as disconnecting? A lot of people will get an AB switch. A lot of AB switches have a middle position that goes to a ground lug. Put the ground lug on your house, on your house grounding system, and when it's lightning, turn the AB switch to that middle position, and it locks out your antennas. But know what risks you're going to accept. Low-profile stations just don't get lightning strikes that often. Does it happen? Yes. When it happens, is it bad? Yes. But know what your situation is. Nearby strikes can still damage things. If you want to do something, do it in steps and get educated. I'm not shilling for the ARRL publications. This grounding and bonding book, it's not a thick read. It's a short read. It's really, really good if you want to get into this topic. So other miscellaneous considerations. You don't have to buy the 4Hams stuff. Shop on eBay, Amazon, AliExpress for miscellaneous things like headsets, mics, etc. If you really, really want to get into a Heil headset or Heil speakers and that's your thing, great. Most people don't need stuff like that. Don't buy expensive ham foot switches. This is one of the most irritating things. If you go to one of the bigger ham radio store players, you can buy a foot switch that's like $85 for the cheap model. Or you can go on Amazon and buy an industrial grade foot switch for $26, take a piece of that red-black zip cord you bought, put it on the end of a plug, and now you have an industrial grade foot pedal that you'll never break. Look for scrap deals on wire. You don't have to buy magical flex weave or premium antenna wire to make an antenna. You can solder antennas together. You can splice antennas together. They will work fine. Steel water pipe and EMT conduits make great mass materials. Paracord is paracord, unless we're talking about high strength, like tower guying. But if you're just talking about getting stuff in the air, paracord is paracord. Human comfort is important. You will operate longer if you're comfortable. Get a correct height desk, table, workbench, however you like to do it. Get a reasonably comfy chair. Ergonomics. Think about them. While you're sitting there using a keyer, are you like hunched up with the keyer, or do you have like, you know, is your arm in a nice natural position, right? Ergonomics really matter. You know, a decent office chair you can get online for $100, and it's way better than your old wooden kitchen chair that you set out in the basement. This is the last slide. Information on the internet is often wrong, misleading, or not right for your situation. Do homework with multiple reliable sources before making significant investments. I'm sure many of you have seen this. You go online and you say, hey Google, what should I do about X? And Google comes back with a very strong opinion of exactly the wrong thing to do for your situation, right? Hams love to pass around lots of wisdom. In many cases, it's not rooted in reliable sources, and it's more lore. So do your homework. Many things will work just fine. Don't get buried in inaction due to over-planning and over-optimization. You can always make incremental improvements. And you will find you're always doing that. As a safety thing, always do an RF exposure of your station to make sure you're not going to burn somebody, because RF burns do hurt. Ask me how I know. So, a sprint through building your ham shack. Any questions? Yeah?
Yeah, I didn't hear you talk about it. I don't normally use it, but what do you think of that stuff that goes in the coax when you're a white putty press?
I don't have any idea what we're talking about. White putty?
It's you squeeze it into the coax and it seals the coax completely.
Like a dielectric grease.
Yeah, but it's like a grease, but it's real.
I've never heard it, never used it.
Okay, just curious.
I don't know what that would solve, but
I
Water
had
gets in at all.
Grease in the
dielectric grease.
before you put the connector on the coax connector itself.
yeah.
It goes
It
inside
tends
the coax
to
connector.
help seal it from moisture.
I think dielectric grease. Is it dielectric grease you're talking about?
Probably, yeah, it's like a white, it comes in a white tube, usually for amateur radio.
Well,
I've never used it. I just wrap tape around it.
yeah, the cool thing is if you prevent anything from getting into the connection, you'll never need that. And the problem with dielectric grease and coax is, especially if you don't get the right stuff, it's not gonna, it's only gonna create more loss in the center conductor. So you might.
Oh, so you put it over the conductor?
You would put it in
You
between
fill the whole
conductor
head up
inside.
and screw it on.
So
I already
just
don't like that.
Just seal the outside properly. And
Yeah. Like if you had a reason to do that you couldn't wrap it, I guess I could see why you'd do that, but I'd just wrap it. I wouldn't put goo on your center conductor. Gary?
It doesn't really hurt anything, but I don't think it helps anything either.
I was curious about the age-old ground called a cold water pipe.
I may use that in my house.
You do use it?
I do.
But you just gotta make sure that it's,
Because I checked, my water pipes are all copper out to the service entrance. Most houses, modern houses, are PEX or whatever the thing that looks like PVC but isn't, and I'm forgetting what the name of it is. CPVC, is that what it's called? CPVC. Or they'll put in flexible joints, or you'll find that you have all copper pipes, and then someone may have broken a valve and then put a shark bite with a piece of PEX in the middle. So, I mean, that's not going to be a lightning ground. That's a fairly good RF ground to kind of help pull noise off of your radio as a common ground. I do that. I have a wire clamp to the water pipe, but I know mine's a straight run out to where the service entrance is.
yeah, I had to jump across the connection between the pipe and the ground pipe and the meter thing in the middle.
Oh yeah, if you have a meter, yeah, if your meter's inside, then yeah, you had to jump over the meter inside.
And it seems to work better.
Yeah, or just have a well and then
That's
there's no
still
meter.
legitimate, right?
Yeah, for a RF ground, yeah, for RF ground, not safety ground, not lightning ground, but for an RF ground, yes. Anyone else? All right, you're all free.
I want to thank
thank everybody for coming tonight. I want to thank Jason for bailing me out, helping me out with the presentation.